Hello, Algebra 2 students. So today we are going to continue our review of quadratics, and we are going to work on factoring four-term polynomials, and I'm going to show you two different options. One option is called, like I said, factor by grouping. The other one is called the box method. Now, before you even begin, you need to look at, is your polynomial in standard form, meaning highest degree to lowest degree. So if I look at the first one, m cubed, m squared, m, and then my constant. So it is in standard form. And then step number 2, is there a GCF I can factor out of all of the terms? So if I have a 7, a -7, a 2, and a -2, they have, other than 1, they have nothing in common. So we're ready to begin. So if we start with, I'm going to call the first one factor by grouping. And then you don't have to do both of them. You're going to pick the way you like doing it, and then you're going to go with that. So if I'm going to do factor by grouping, I'm going to group 2 at a time. So I'm going to group the first 2 into 7m cubed minus 7m squared plus, and I'm going to group the last 2, 2m minus 2. Okay, now you're going to factor out the GCF out of both terms here. So out of the first one, we can factor out a 7 and an m squared, and I'm left with m minus 1. And the second grouping, we can factor out a 2, and we're left with m minus 1. So notice that they have to have this common factor in each one. They both have to have an m minus 1. So you're going to factor it completely. Notice it says write the outside times the inside. So what's on the outside? We have a 7m squared plus 2. And on the inside, what do we have in common? An m minus 1. So this is factor by grouping. That is option number 1. The other option we have is what we call the box method. And again, you do not do both of these on the worksheet. You pick the way that works better for you. So again, factor by grouping was the first example. Box method is the second one. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a box. Okay, and you're going to put each of the terms inside the box. So we're going to have 7m cubed, -7m squared, 2m, and a minus 2 there. Okay, so if I look at the first row here, what can I factor out? What's the GCF out of the first row? Hopefully you're thinking a 7 and an m squared. The second row, what can I factor out? Hopefully you're going to say a 2. And then the first column, what can I factor out? Notice you're going to hopefully say an m. And then the last column, I can't factor anything out, but since they're both negative, we can factor out a -1. And then we test it. 7m squared times m is 7m cubed. 2 times m is 2m. 7m squared times -1 is -7m squared. And 2 times -1 is -2. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have this part. So it's going to be 7m squared. Since there's no sign here, it's going to be a plus and then 2. And at the top here, we're left with m minus 1. So if you look at it, see how I got the same answer either way I did it. So again, you're going to pick the method that works best for you and then do it that way. Okay, let's take a look at my next example. So we have 24ty minus 18t plus 4y minus 3. So again, thinking about it, is it in standard form? The answer is yes. Do I have a GCF out of all of the terms? No, nothing other than 1. So again, let's go with both methods again, because I don't know, depending on who's watching the video. Some of you might be grouping, or maybe some of you might be the box method. It just depends. So again, if I'm going to do grouping, I'm going to group the first 2, and then I'm going to do a plus, and then I'm going to group the last 2, 4y minus 3. Okay, so out of the first 2, what can I factor out? Let's see here. I'm thinking a 6 and a t. So I'm left with 4y minus 3. On the last 2, I can't factor anything out. So to hold its spot here, we're going to put a 1. And again, I've got 4y minus 3. Okay, so again, now I'm going to write what's on the outside first. So we have 6t plus 1, and then what do I have left on the inside? 4y minus 3. So this is my answer if I'm doing grouping. Okay, let's also talk about how to do the box method again. So we are going to draw a box, split it up into the 4 pieces, and we're going to put a term in each box. So 24ty, negative 18t, 4y, and negative 3. So again, if I look at the first row, what's the GCF going to be? Hopefully you're thinking of a 6 and a t. The second row here, I can't factor anything out, so I'm going to put a 1 to hold its spot. And then the first column, we can factor out a 4 and a y. And the last column, since there's a negative to lead, we're going to factor in a negative. And then I'm thinking a negative 3. And again, if we test it, 6t times 4y is 24ty. 1 times 4y is 4y. 6t times negative 3 is negative 18t. And 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. So we're good there. So we're going to have, if I look over here, we're going to have 6t. And then since that's a 1, that's a positive 1. So 6t plus 1. And then what we have left at the top here, 4y minus 3. Notice, again, I get the same answer. It does not matter which method I prefer. Okay. Let's take a look at, I need to do all of these here. Let's take a look at this example here. So I have 8t to the 4th plus 12t cubed plus 16t squared plus 24t. So remember I said, first off, is this in standard form? Again, the answer is yes, because we're going from highest degree to lowest degree. Second, is there a GCF I can factor out? Okay, I'm looking at this, and I am thinking you can factor an 8 and a t. No, not an 8. How about a 4 and a t from each term here? So if I factor out a 4t, I'm left with 2t cubed plus 3t squared plus 4t plus 6. Okay, and then now, so remember, keep in mind, I'm going to have a 4t in my answer at the end. So again, either answer is going to be 4t, and then we're going to have everything else. Okay, so if we're going to do grouping first, again, you're going to pick your method you like. So in grouping, I'm going to group the first 2 and group the last 2. So we're going to have 2t cubed plus 3t squared plus, and then the last 2, 4t plus 6. So again, in the first 2, what can I factor out? I'm looking at that as a t squared. I'm left with 2t plus 3. In the last 2, I can factor out a 2, and I'm left with 2t plus 3. So again, notice these should be the same if we're doing it correctly. So what do we have on the outside? T squared plus 2. And then what do we have left? The 2t plus 3. So this is my answer. Notice I still have that 4t that I factored out originally. So again, that's grouping. If we're going to do the box method, again, we're going to put one of each of these terms in the box. So 2t cubed, 3t squared. What do we have here? 4t and a 6. Okay, so if I look at the first row, I can factor out a t squared. If I look at the last row, we can factor out a 2. If I look at the first column, we can factor out a 2 and a t. And if we look at the last column, we can factor out a 3. So again, I have the 4t I had originally. And then over here, I'm going to have t squared. There's no sign, so it's going to be a plus, so plus 2. And at the top here, we're going to have 2t, and again, there's no sign, so it'll be plus 3. So again, notice, I got the same answer either way I did it. It just depends on, again, your approach. Okay, let's take a look at this one here. I'm kind of skipping around to make sure we hit a variety of problems here. So we have negative 15t minus 49x squared plus 35 plus 21x cubed. So remember I said the first thing you need to check is it in standard form? This one is not. Again, it should be highest degree to lowest degree. So we should have 21x cubed minus 49x squared minus 15x and then plus 35. So we have it in standard form. Next, we want to check, is there a GCF out of all of the terms? And sorry about that. And again, the answer is no. That does not work. So we're going to, again, proceed by our two methods here. So let's do first the grouping. So if I'm going to do grouping, I'm going to group the first two. So 21x cubed minus 49x squared. And I'm going to group the last two, negative 15x, and then plus 35. So again, in the first two, what can I factor out? Hopefully you're thinking a 7 and an x squared, and I'm left with 3x minus 7. And then on the last two, since this one is negative, we are going to factor out a negative, and it looks like it's going to be a negative 5, and we're left with 3x minus 7. Okay, so again, according to our grouping, what's left on the outside, 7x squared minus 5, and then what do I have on the inside here? 3x minus 7. So this would be my answer. If we were doing it by the box method, again, I'm going to draw a box, and I'm going to put each of the four terms in the box. So 21x cubed, negative 49x squared, negative 15x, and a positive 35. So again, what can I factor out of the first row? I'm thinking a 7 and an x squared. The last row, since it's a lead negative here, we're going to factor in a negative, and it's going to be a negative 5. And then the first column, it looks like we can factor out a 3 and an x. And the last column, since again it's a lead with a negative, I'm going to factor out a negative, looks like a 7. So if we test it, 7x squared times 3x is 21x cubed. 7x squared times negative 7 is negative 49x squared. Negative 5 times 3x is negative 15x, and negative 5 times negative 7 is positive 35. So again, what do we have over here? We're going to have 7x squared minus 5. And at the top, we're going to have 3x minus 7. And again, like I keep saying, it doesn't matter which way you pick. You should get the same result as long as your math is correct. So again, when you're doing your assignment, you are not necessarily doing it both ways. You're going to pick, do you like doing it by grouping, or do you like the box method? Pick one and just stick with that one. And as always, if you have any questions, please let me know.